What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Edge DFS. We are coming at you live for Super Bowl Showdown. This is our final thoughts show. At this point, we've already done a few hours worth of content. I feel like we have a good grasp on the slate. Now let's just casually kind of put everything together. You know, we're not going to do a full breakdown. We're not going to go position by position like we usually do. We're just going to talk about some any news. We're going to talk a little bit about some prop bets, and we're going to get into some just general roster construction things. We do have a captain crunch that we crunched out just to kind of see all the best captain choices with some ownership, things like that. So, Ellie, it's Sunday. We're a few hours away from it, about 5 hours. Are you excited? It's going to be
bullets. I'm pretty stoked, man. This is going to be a really fun game. And this is a little bit different show for us, right? We've never really kind of done this sort of format, so it's going to be fun. And then to our one viewer currently, and to those joining here shortly, feel free to ask questions. Let's engage in some conversation in the chat. If you want to see some specific lineups, some roster builds, let's do it, right? Let's work through the different constructions that we're going to need to see today. Again, I mean, we have a pretty rough idea what the optimal is going to be. We've talked about that for about a week and a half now.
Yeah,
that there's a pretty good idea. I think the whole world knows pretty much who the most important players in this game are. So, we want to talk through some ways to get different, just in case there is that off chance that we can take down a massive contest because we're paying attention to those little things. So just let's make this an active discussion, right? Feel free to jam in with your comments and questions. We're really here to work with the audience today, as opposed to just spitting information out at you. But I do think we have some interesting news as far as like injuries and those not on the tag anymore. So we do have some updates to provide, but I'm looking forward to this show, man. I think it's really going to help me because I have a shitload of fucking entries, and I'm going to try and build across the board. So
and I'm going to keep entering any 20 max lineups that keep popping up. I'm just going to keep entering.
Yeah. And look, dude, I kind of honestly, when we're talking about entry selection, contest selection, which this might be a good show to talk about that stuff for. Yeah. You start getting into the 150 max on Showdown, those contests are going to be even more massive than the 20 maxes. So if you got somebody who's running a 150 in one of these massive contests, think about the possible variations of lineups that they're going to get. So that's why 20 max might actually be more interesting in this particular case, because you don't have that opportunity to play fucking Harrison Butker at captain with a whole bunch of random shit. You know what I mean? Like you're doing that so you can get some of these weird fucking lineups. So I think you get a little bit of opportunity here playing these 20 maxes, and I will be reserving these until lock, and then I think I'm just going to build like 200 fucking lineups that way.
Yeah, exactly. So look, guys, if you guys want to check out a full breakdown after we're off the air, we have two long videos. We have a first look video that kind of gets our first thoughts out. And then we did a couple days ago, we did another live show that really went deep into things. So after we're off live, feel free to visit the YouTube channel, check out those videos if you wanted to get a little bit more in depth. For now, I think it's just kind of wrapping our minds around things. We all know the kind of the best plays at this point. We all know that Gronk and Rojo potentially could change the slate based on their prices if they can actually have a relatively good game. I think that can really change the way you build your lineups. But for now, I think this is just like talking theory. Let's actually get into our bird's eye view here. So obviously the line hasn't moved much at all. I think there was a couple extra from the last time we did this. I think Kansas City was like minus 167 or something. So nothing really to talk about here. But you can see the ownership is skewing towards Kansas City. I think we all expected that to happen, and projected points as well. Chris, Chiefs going to take the W. Ellie, you're muted. But dude, it's hard, man. I actually like Tampa Bay. I think Tampa Bay's live here to win this one outright in an upset. It's hard. It's hard. I think if you're putting money down, I think Kansas City's probably the smart choice. But Tampa Bay can take this one.
Yeah. I think this is one of the better matchups we're going to get, and probably one of the better matchups we could have asked for. The only thing that I think really stands out to me for this, though, is I think Kansas City doesn't necessarily have to do as much to be the better team. Tampa Bay needs to play pretty much perfectly. They need to play disciplined football. They can't commit turnovers. There's more that Tampa Bay has to do to kind of get to the path of victory here. They essentially have to play perfect. Kansas City just has a little bit more breathing room because of the potential, just their offensive explosiveness and their ability to score so quickly. So, I mean, not to get too sidetracked here, but that's kind of what we go into a lot on the other shows, and why, you know, I'm a little bit higher on the running game than I think a lot of people would normally be for Tampa Bay, because you know, I just don't think you beat Kansas City at their own game. The way that you beat them is take advantage of their quick strike potential, and them keeping their defense on the field, run the ball, and make that defense tired. If you do that, Kansas City's defense is not that good at stopping the run. So, I think there's more that Tampa has to do right to win this than Kansas City does. As long as Kansas City plays defense or plays discipline, doesn't turn the ball over, doesn't have penalties, they should pull this out without too much of a contest, in my opinion. But
I think Tampa Bay, the one way they can have an advantage here is, like you said, establish the run against the Chiefs, who they don't have a great run defense. But also, I think the biggest key here is Todd Bowles being able to confuse Patrick Mahomes slightly. You're not going to shut him down completely, but if you can keep them to a relatively lower score going into the fourth quarter, I think Tom Brady, as long as he's within 10 points, we know he can come back from 28-3. Right. But as long as he's within 10 points, this game is always going to be there's always going to be a chance for Tampa Bay to take this, especially with the dynamic players that Tampa Bay has. There's so many damn options for them. Right. I think Kansas City is safe. It's a safe bet to say, look, I think they're going to pull this one out. It's going to be a close game, but Todd Bowles, I think, is the key in this game, in my opinion. I know that sounds strange, a defensive coordinator, but we know the dude blitzes like crazy, and it came back to bite him in the ass last time these teams played, where Tyreek Hill had a fucking 200-yard game at halftime. So I think they're going to overcompensate for that. They're going to get a little bit smarter with it. But look, Andy Reid is a smart guy as well. I think this is like chess with these coaches. One guy reacts, the other guy's going to react a different way. Yeah, you got anything else to add?
I mean, we'll get into this a little bit, I guess, but I do want to point out that Tampa Bay does have a mismatch size-wise against the Kansas City defense, right? Mike Evans, Gronk, Cameron Brait, even Chris Godwin. Like, these are taller, more physical receivers. Chris Godwin, not quite as much. So that is another path that they have here. This is more of a finesse defense. You got, I think their tallest corner is like 5'7". So, I mean, that's also something to keep in mind. Like, Mike Evans could body some of these guys. Like, there are ways that Tampa Bay can stay in this game, but it depends on their chemistry. It depends on whether or not they're going to have these drive-killing penalties. I mean, we got to remember, wasn't Tristan Wirfs like the worst fucking left tackle in the league like the first 3 weeks of the season? There's a lot of things that can go wrong for Tampa, and that's kind of my biggest concern there. But other than that, man, I really do think that these are different teams. This team's going to command. Tom Brady commands a little bit more discipline and respect for the game, I guess. You know what I mean? So I definitely anticipate this to be a little bit different team than we saw in Week 12.
Yeah, absolutely. And that postseason experience from Tom Brady, it's going to trickle down to the rest of the team, even though the team is relatively inexperienced, especially the coaching staff. I know that Arians. I know these guys have coached in Super Bowls before, but being the head coach in a Super Bowl is a lot different. There's a lot more pressure, a lot more things to think about.
Right.
So let's get over to injuries here. I think this is a little bit easier to look at now.
Oh, I'm hurt. Oh, my neck, my back, my neck and my back. Oh.
Seems like everybody's going to play. I think if you had to guess at one of these guys that is the most questionable, would you say Sammy Watkins is probably the guy that you would keep an eye on the most here?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, look, Sammy Watkins is a great play, given his price tag, and assuming that he is going to play. I will have exposure regardless. unless he's ruled out, of course, or like is downgraded to doubtful. That would limit my exposure pretty significantly. But if we don't hear anything else here, then I'm still going to have a decent amount of exposure to the guy because he did well last Super Bowl. He's done well the first game of the last 2 seasons and kind of fallen off from there. But I think he does have a lot of upside in this game. So that's probably my biggest question mark here. The other one that I've been kind of harping on for a while here is Lev Bell. To Lev Bell at $800 is an egregious misprice. I really don't give a shit what his volume looks like. He still needs to be priced up higher just because of his potential output. And I know that this. People are skeptical about how much work he's going to be. Dude, this is what he's wanted to do. This is his first Super Bowl, right? This is the whole point of everything that he's been through. He started the season on the fucking Jets, right? And didn't he get cut by the goddamn Jets? Now he's in the Super Bowl. Like, and same thing with Leonard Fournette on the other side of the ball, right? You have guys here that want it, right? This is their first and probably their last opportunity. So I don't think that we can just cross Le'Veon Bell out of the player pool, especially now that he has no designation whatsoever.
I don't think we can either, but at the same time, I don't think it's necessarily Lev Bell's choice. To a certain extent, he might not see the field as much to even have an opportunity. I don't even see him getting more than like 2 or 3 carries in this game.
Right. Now, but my point is as opposed to like NBA, right, where you need those actual minutes to put the fantasy output there. Lev Bell can take I don't know if he's still got the speed, but you're talking about one screen pass can turn into something that breaks the slate, right? The amount of will and desire that can come out of these guys, like, I mean, we saw last week with Mecole Hardman. He had that fumble, and then he starts turning screen passes into fucking 50, 60-yard gains. So it's just one of those things. Like, you don't need as much opportunity. You just need to make that you need to make the most of that opportunity you do get. And these guys definitely have the ability to do that. I think that's maybe my point.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I'm actually going to be above the field on Lev Bell because of $800. I totally get it.
Yep.
I just feel like, and look, he's under 10% owned. So like you said, if he catches a couple screen balls and randomly catches a touchdown, like a little shovel pass touchdown or something in this game that no one's expecting, I think he can be in the optimal. But it's a really risky play because he just might not even get the opportunity. And in Showdown, that's what we're looking at. We're looking at opportunity. We're looking at some of these guys. Some of these guys that are our favorite plays aren't necessarily like great football players, but they're getting a little bit more opportunity based on their price tag. This is one of those plays that's going to be it's going to be risky. And I think Lev Bell is a good milli maker option because we've seen him actually have a chance. We know he can score. We know he can be dynamic. And that's what we're looking for here. We're looking for those guys who can break the slate at 1,000 or 2,200 or whatever it is.
And just to kind of piggyback off of your comment about ownership, right? Like, I'm not going to go out there with fucking 45% exposure to Le'Veon Bell, right? When I'm talking about having a healthy amount of him, I mean, if the field's at 5%, I can go out there and be really comfortable with 15%.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
And that gives me probably enough variation to get all the potential builds that I'm comfortable with or that I like. Yeah. Without having to run him in some dumbass lineup. So I'm not saying throw him in captain, guys. I'm just saying if you need some salary saving options, I don't think he's a terrible play today. Just make sure that that's not your only lineup.
Absolutely. And so with Demarcus Robinson, it looks like he cleared the COVID protocols. He's going to play in this game, barring any randomness this morning or later in the afternoon. I hate to say this, I wish he didn't play in this game because it really muddies things when it comes to the, fourth, fifth, third, fourth, fifth wide receivers, these kind of options on the Chiefs. Demarcus Robinson is that high upside guy, but he's been disappointing lately, especially Mecole Hardman coming on lately. I don't know that Demarcus Robinson is going to get enough opportunity, but any one of these guys, if you told me Demarcus Robinson had 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, I wouldn't be surprised. If you told me Mecole Hardman had that, I wouldn't be surprised. I personally think one way to get different in this game is to focus less on Kelsey and Hill and focus on some of these peripheral guys on the Chiefs. I know I'm not telling you to fade Kelsey and Hill. I'm saying in a few lineups, don't be afraid to get away from both of them and focus on Mahomes, focus on Brady. go a little bit heavier with the Godwin side of things or the Evans side of things. And then, go with some Sammy Watkins, go with some Robinson, some Mecole Hardman, because these guys, they can't cover everyone. The BUCS cannot cover everyone. And these guys
can barely cover who's out there. Like, let's be honest, they're not great. But anyways.
Exactly. So I guess my point is, with Demarcus Robinson now being eligible to play and most likely will be playing, it really confuses me with, look, you've got Sammy, Mecole Hardman, Demarcus Robinson, and Byron Pringle. Now that Robinson is in, Robinson's at 1,400. I think that's a really good option. I think he's going to be forgotten about. He's probably going to be less than 10% owned. And that pretty much eliminates Byron Pringle for me for the most part. I'm still going to probably be with the field in a couple lineups with Pringle. But now Robinson gets a big boost because at under 10% and at 1,400, this is the kind of guy that can get you a touchdown. And in my opinion, he has a relatively high probability of getting a touchdown, much higher than Lev Bell, in my opinion. Do you agree with that?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. Look, and this is why I like doing these shows. I like getting your thoughts about some of these guys too, right? So we can kind of find the line in the middle. But with Sammy Watkins back, I think so. Look, I think D-Rob is a good play if you're expecting Sammy Watkins a little bit more hurt than we're leading on. Yeah. If Sammy Watkins plays, I don't see Demarcus Robinson getting more than 2 targets, and that's probably a high end. I think he's about as risky as Lev Bell just because he's more expensive and requires a little bit more fantasy production. So I think they're kind of hand in hand for me. All have similar exposure. Unless the field just starts coming in at like under 5% D-Rob, then I'll probably have similar exposure to Le'Veon Bell. Yeah. But if he stays like 10 to 15%, then I'll probably be even or around 20. I don't know about 25 because I have a shitload of lineups going.
Yeah.
But I think really the primary guys to target here are going to be obviously Tyreek and Travis Kelce. But if Sammy Watkins is available at his price tag, it's just, I think he has too much upside, even with the potential injury risk there. Like, I like Sammy Watkins a lot.
This is why I love Showdown, because we can talk about Demarcus Robinson and Le'Veon Bell and Mecole Hardman for 10 plus minutes. And that's where we're going to get the edge.
Right.
Mecole Hardman at 5,600. I like Mecole Hardman. Don't get me wrong, but at 5,600, I could pay $4,000 less, $4,200 less, and get Demarcus Robinson, who I feel like has a similar ceiling and has potential for a similar type game, $4,000 cheaper, and probably I would say maybe half the ownership, maybe a little bit more than that. So these are just things to think about. Don't just throw off Demarcus Robinson because he's had a few bad games, in my opinion. And look, they're projected right around the same. I think it's like a half-point difference between the two. So that's just, to me, I'm higher on Demarcus. So let's go over to the BUCS. Oh, go ahead, bro.
No, I was just gonna say, guys, we're playing NFL here, right? This isn't NBA. Like, the range of outcomes, the variance that you're gonna get from these guys is insane. So kind of like what we were talking about earlier with Lev Bell getting 2 opportunities, but still turning it into something. Those 2 targets Demarcus Robinson had could also be 2 receptions for 75 yards each and touchdowns, right? So that's what we're looking for here. If you think that these guys have the opportunity to break out, or you just have a gut feeling, like, this is the one sport where I say fucking play them. Yeah, like, just fucking do it, right? I mean, goddamn, they made a goddamn movie about Any Given Sunday, right? Like, that is as cheesy and cliche as it sounds. This is what happens. This is why football is just a compelling sport to watch. Anybody can come up out of nowhere and fucking change everything for their team. And this is the biggest stage ever, right? So if something like that is going to happen, I expect Demarcus Robinson to put his best foot forward on the fucking Super Bowl. So, just keep play. This is go narratives, go game scripts today. Like, that's how you play a showdown game like this. But yeah, let's talk about it.
I will have Demarcus Robinson at captain in a handful of lineups. Not a lot, you're talking maybe 3 or 4 lineups, but these are the kind of weird ass shit that you see on a showdown, especially in a Super Bowl, where we have so many expensive guys. Rojo is a really good option at captain for me because of his price, because of his projection. I totally see him getting a touchdown. but you can go down $800 from Rojo to Demarcus Robinson, and you get a similar roster construction. You get all the best players in the flex. I'm not saying go heavy on DeMarc and the captain, but he's one of these guys that, you know, as a dart throw, I'd be willing to take. So Antonio Brown is questionable. He's going to play most likely. I don't see there's no way this guy doesn't suit up and play. Now his effectiveness is that's another thing. With the knee injury, how effective can he be in this game? Especially considering, you know, you could really say that he's potentially the fourth option if he's not healthy. So how much volume can Antonio Brown see today if he just cannot make those cuts, if he can't find a way to get open? And if Brady knows it, he's not gonna target him, I don't think. So what are your thoughts on Antonio Brown? I think you're a little higher on him than I am.
Yeah, I love Antonio Brown in this game. Right back to the narrative shit, right? This is it, man. Antonio Brown, you've been through a lot the past couple of years, right? Like, this is it. Like, this is the epitome of the mouth running. Like, his shit talking, everything that he's been through, his second chances. This is it, man. Like, if he doesn't come out and play to his full potential, like, his career is actually over, and he will probably lose the fucking Super Bowl. That's one of the reasons why I'm high on him, right? This could be his last opportunity. This could be the last opportunity to continue to make a name for himself and stay back in the league, right? If this doesn't work out for him, if he has a poor game because he played through an injury, I don't know if the dude has the mental fortitude to kind of make it past that. I don't know, like, he's like the Kyrie Irving of the NFL, but just Kyrie still plays and is good, right? It's that kind of like mental health. Yeah, it's the mental health stuff. Now, Kyrie, I think, is just like a really smart guy, but crazy. AB, I think, is actually CTE crazy. So, you know, I definitely think that this could be an interesting game for him. But I love him. I think he's in a great spot today. I honestly think what happens is they go down quick. It's probably going to be 10-0. And what's going to happen is Tom Brady is going to rely on his guys, Gronk and AB, or AB and Chris Godwin. So those are going to be the kind of primary stacks that I'm going to be working with today. I love AB today. I think he's a great captain option if you've watched the last couple of videos. So I love AB. I'm going to have a shitload of him. I prefer him over Mike Evans.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's coming in under 5% in the captain. He'd probably be 2 or 3% if I had to guess. And that's what you're looking for when you're in a contest with 300,000, 600,000 entries. You can't just plug Mahomes at the captain and just expect to profit and have a plus EV kind of day, in my opinion. You got to get weird with it today. So Cameron Brait is questionable. Looks like he will play. He's had a back injury. He's been limited in practice. He actually, when we did the show earlier, he wasn't popping up on most of the injury reports. Like, he was on the injury report, but it wasn't like a news item with Cameron Brait. Since then, it's been a little bit more. Maybe I don't know if maybe his back has gotten worse and he's just pushing through. I don't know how to play this Cameron Brait thing, but he will play most likely. But with a back injury for a tight end, I mean, he could just not be very effective. And I already love Gronkowski in this game. I love Gronkowski.
I mean, to be fair, Gronk made a career out of playing through back injuries, so you know
he's a machine at this point. There's so many screws and shit in his body at this point.
Yeah.
So look, how interested are you in Cameron Brait? I know he's been getting most of the targets, and if you watched any of our other shows, you know, a couple days ago and last week, I was just higher on the fact, narrative-wise, that Gronk and Brady have that chemistry in the Super Bowl, and there's no reason why he won't be targeting Gronk in the red zone. But Cameron Brait's $4,800 and Gronk is $1,800 cheaper. So what are your thoughts on Brait versus Gronk? And are you concerned with Brait having a back injury in this game?
No, not really. I love both of them. I think both of them are in an great smash spot. I think Gronk is going to get a little bit more love from Tom Brady just because, again, I think that they're going to be down in the beginning here, and they're going to need to rely on kind of some of their safety valve guys. So that's why I think Gronk gets a slight boost. But don't get me wrong, I expect fucking Brait to be lower owned than what we would expect him to be based on kind of his playoff performance up to this point. Simply because I think everybody's just made Gronk 3,000. Well, you got to fucking play in. So I think you might be able to get contrarian by paying up a little bit for Cameron Brait.
Yeah.
So it's something I'm going to have exposure to. I don't think I'm going to have like Brait and Gronk together, but I definitely think that it's a size mismatch. You don't have Tyrann Mathieu is going to be able to cover you for a little bit, but at a certain point, 6'7" beats 5'7".
Yeah, exactly. Say chiming in, tight ends versus Chiefs. I agree. Gronk and a lot of lines. I unfortunately, I felt like I was like, ooh, I have like this hot take about Gronk. I think he's going to have a great game. I think the consensus is kind of agreeing with me for the most part, at least DFS wise on DraftKings.
He's $1,000 cheaper than the kickers, though. Like, you know what I mean? So I think that's driving a little bit more ownership to him. And I just, if you have ownership projections, guys, keep an eye on it, because I expect as we get closer to lock, people are going to start understanding how easy it is to build with Gronk instead of Cameron Brait. So it's just something to keep in mind. It's
so easy. All those lineups we built live on those shows before, Gronk just fits so easily into them. And you're like, okay, do I want to go with Butker? Do I want to go with Ryan Suckoff? Or do I want to go with Gronk? I'd rather go with Gronk, So I think his ownership, to me, it's hovering around, I don't know, maybe 15% right now. I think they're both under 15%.
If that's the case, then let me pull this back up. Let's see. So for tight end, I got Brait at 17.2 and Gronk at 13.4. Yeah, I mean, honestly, if they stay that way, it doesn't matter to me. Just fucking play whichever one you can get to. I love them at that ownership and that price. You don't even need to get crazy. You can double the field at 30% and still have a bunch of lineups that don't have them. You know what I mean? So I just think at that ownership expectation that they're just both great plays.
Yeah, I totally agree. All right, so let's actually look at our Captain Crunch segment here. This is going to give us an idea. Things have changed a little bit since the last show. The projections have changed up a little bit. So basically, crunched out 250 lineups per captain, brought it into Excel and did some analysis here. So we're looking at high projected points. Looks like Ronald Jones at captain has the highest projected lineup right now, at least from my set of projections. But obviously Patrick Mahomes seems to be across the board the best option. That's not some hot take, but you see, the dupes. You see the dupes over there on that right hand column there. You're going to have to fight hard to be different with Patty at captain, and same with a lot of these other guys, even like Tyreek Hill. I think you have to focus on roster construction. You have to get weird in the flex if you're playing any of these guys at captain. You have to do double running backs, multiple wide receivers. You have to go 4-2 BUCS, or a 2-4 stack with Mahomes, even, with 4 BUCS in the flex, something like that. That's what you got to focus on. Brandon's asking about Robinson or Hardman. I personally like Robinson today. That's just my take. I think Ellie likes Hardman more. We're sort of split on this, right?
I mean, full disclosure, it's kind of an odd question to answer just because it's not a 1v1. So do you need the salary savings or do you prefer the ceiling?
I mean, football-wise, I'm saying Hardman. Like if I'm just watching the football game, I say, Hardman's going to have a better game. Or but more
$4,000 difference, right? So
$4,000 difference.
What are you getting? What's the opportunity cost here? What are you getting by going down to Robinson and coming off of Hardman?
If you have enough salary to afford Hardman, I would not choose to go down to Robinson. I'd choose Cameron Brait. Right? I'd choose someone else more in that price range.
Yeah.
So Ronald Jones being the opto captain here. I mean, he's coming in around 1%. I think he's going to be much higher than that. I think. I mean, it's a ballsy move to put him at captain, but if you're doing that, you're sort of hoping you're cashing in a lottery ticket by putting him in, and hopefully he has a ceiling game. But you're getting so much opportunity in the flex. You can jam in Kelsey Hill, Mahomes, Brady, and one other punt, and still feel pretty comfortable. But the problem with Ronald Jones at captain for me is the roster construction is going to be so anybody who the 1% of the 600,000 people playing with Ronald Jones, they're all going to be the same lineups, right. So if you play Ronald Jones at captain, don't just go popping in everyone in the flex. Don't just optimize. You got to kind of get creative with your Ronald Jones captains. Even though he's 1%, you're going to run past the finish line with everyone in that 1%, and you're still going to end up with a decent amount of dupes. So keep that in mind. I mean, if you look at the top ownership, the sum of ownership, he's one of the highest, which means to me that the actual roster construction with him at captain will be very similar. So Ellie, what else jumps out to you here, man?
Not to give away the house or anything, but Antonio Brown, given his captain ownership, the low amount of dupes that we're projecting for him, I just think he's in a great spot. And I'm looking specific when we're looking at this together. I'm looking at that top ceiling kind of projection, right? Yeah. So we can look at the high projected points and the low projected points, but especially with NFL, the most important part is building your lineups like a ceiling output. It's similar to MMA when you're going through and choosing your fighters. Your projections need to adjust slightly based on you thinking them they're getting wins.
Exactly.
So that is important stuff here. If I think Antonio Brown's going to go out for 2 and 120, then I need to prepare for that in my projections. And I think that's what this column really does for us here. And then, we always like talking about the variance implied by standard deviation and all that shit. So I just think the range of outcomes here are obviously a little bit higher, so you can play them a little bit more comfortably in a GPP. So obviously this isn't a great cash spot for Antonio Brown, but I think he has a lot of upside in that captain spot, given his ownership and his price. So it's not like, again, you don't have to go out there and run 25 lineups with him at captain. You could probably run 5 or 6, get a couple variations that you're comfortable with, and then just move on to Kelsey and Hill or whomever you want to get in there. But other than that, I think it's looking at the Tampa Bay side of the ball for some captain options is really important. I think Rojo, I'm on the same boat with you, right? I'm going to try and get a little bit more different by playing Rojo instead of having the same handful of builds that we're expecting at the 1% captain spot. But I think he's a great spot. I will have some Sammy Watkins. Just full disclosure, I will have some Sammy Watkins captain. I'm running a shitload of lineups, so I'm going to have a couple different game scripts built for as opposed to my normal just 1 or 2.
To me, the perfect zone here is the Chris Godwin's, Mike Evans zone. They're not projecting out necessarily well. They're not. Their ceiling isn't necessarily there. When you look at these numbers, the dupes are sort of right in the middle. It's like these middling guys you kind of forget about. Even though Chris Godwin's and Mike Evans in most of the games this year are the best receivers on the field. But because you have Tyreek Hill, because you have Travis Kelce, you sort of forget how good Godwin and Evans are. And at 8% or 7% or anything under 10% for these guys, I'm actually going to go heavy Godwin and Evans, and I'm not afraid to put them in the same lineup. The other one in the flex with one in the captain.
Right.
I'm afraid to. But what jumps out to me here is basically anybody besides Mahomes. The ownership is pretty spread out amongst the 4 or 5 of these guys. You can play plenty of Kelsey. I actually like playing a lot of Tom Brady in this game because a quarterback coming in the 4th highest owned in the captain is just, to me, a sign that you got to just get over the field on him. We all know that Tom Brady can have, if he has a quarterback sneak for a touchdown and he throws for three passing touchdowns, it's going to be hard for him not to be the optimal captain, or at least close to it. And at that ownership, 13%, you have the ceiling, you have the projected points. I just like him. What are your thoughts on Brady at captain? And if we're going, 4-2s, BUCS, who would you want to put in the 2? Can you go Kelsey Hill? Mahomes? Yes. Hill? Can you get crazy?
I think my priority there, if I'm doing a 4-2 BUCS, is my 2 at AB is better than Hardman. Yes. I think I'm going Hill Kelsey. Look, I know this is ballsy as a motherfucker, but I just don't know that you need Patrick Mahomes in this game. I think it's very, very easily a game where Hill and Kelsey each have 6 receptions, 100 yards, and a touchdown. Get them in both your lineups, and then they could just rely on the run game the whole second half. And we've seen their little dink-dunk passes that milk the clock 8-9 minutes, and they don't really do anything up the field, which again kind of gives you a boost to Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce with the PPR option. So I definitely think that's viable. I'm not recommending we fade Patrick Mahomes, but I do think it's okay to have a couple lineups without him. Just be very clear on that. It's the easiest leverage that you're going to get on the entire day. So absolutely. I have a couple lines doing that. And now if I'm going to do that, I don't know if I'm going to have too much of Tom Brady at captain. I will have a little bit of exposure, but my only concern is if he's throwing for 320 yards and 3 touchdowns, I expect Chris Godwin or Antonio Brown has 10 receptions, 170 yards and 2 touchdowns. So if that's the case, that person's going to have to be the captain for me. So that's how I'm going to be building my stacks for Tampa, is I'm going to be looking at the actual positional player who I think is going to be getting that ceiling kind of performance and prioritizing that my captain spot. Now, with that said, I do want some Tom Brady captain because they could end up with a shitload of goal to go or goal in, what is it, goal to go? Yeah, situations where you're on the 1 yard line. And what does he do? He fucking sneaks.
Oh, yeah. And you know that he's the kind of guy that would do that.
Yeah, he could have 3 passing touchdowns and 2 rushing touchdowns. So, like, I fucking hate him, but that absolutely could happen.
So something something to consider. I fully think that Pat Mahomes fade in certain roster constructions. If you're going to fade him, you got to think about it. You can't just blindly crunch and say, "Oh, I don't want him in this lineup." You got to think about the roster construction. You're not putting multiple wide receivers, 3 of his wide receivers instead of Patrick Mahomes. I just don't think that can work out for you. So anything else to look at here? Actually, you know what? One thing to bring up. A guy that didn't even make the cut for this graphic was Daryl Williams. And I don't think he can have a really high upside game, but he's the guy that's going to be forgotten about and could get you two goal line touchdowns and break the slate. And that's what worries me about with Daryl Williams is I love him. I think he's a great option. I just don't love the fact that Kansas City is just not good with punching it in with their running backs in the red zone. We've seen this. We've seen that it usually ends up going to Kelsey. It usually ends up, whether it's a quarterback sneak or it's a passing touchdown opportunity and less opportunity for these running backs. But I think you have to consider Daryl Williams in the captain because no one is going to play him. I think he's less than 2% owned right now in the captain. And his overall ownership is pretty low because some of the props, we'll get to him in a minute. Some of the props are really low. He's not projecting well. So what are your thoughts on Daryl Williams in the captain / in the flex?
Yeah, I think he's fine to get some exposure too. Again, he's so low owned that I don't know if you need to get too crazy with it. I mean, what do we have for Daryl Williams?
Like 20. I think he's going to be 20% ish.
Yeah. So I mean, that's fine. Like I don't mind getting some exposure to him at that price, and then and that projected ownership. I think he makes for a fine contrarian captain play too. Again, my only concern there is just because I do see Bell active. I do see CEH. He's supposedly healthy. So we're not 100% sure. But honestly, that could mean more to you in a tournament play, right? He's been doing really well. So Andy Reid may continue to ride the hot hand, right? We don't know what's going to happen here. So that means I think it's important to remember him and just don't forget about him if you're max entering and I realize that you have 0% Daryl Williams. I think he's a guy that you want to put lineups with. Yeah, I
think you got to get slightly above the field on Daryl Williams. Now you could make a bold take and fade him, and it could pay off for you. I'm just so worried with these kind of guys. He's going to get the most run at running back, in my opinion. I know CEH is also a great option. He's sort of a similar option, but at least he has some passing upside or some reception upside. But to me, I feel like Daryl Williams is the kind of guy that can fuck everyone over by having a big game, and I don't want to be one of the guys that gets screwed over. So I'm gonna stick with him at ownership or above the field, in my opinion. So last thing here before we move on, we're gonna look at some props here in a second. So Leonard Fournette we haven't talked about. Now I personally I'm just not as high on Fournette, and for whatever reason, maybe it's just because now he's a popular play and everyone's going to be on him. And I feel like he's just not grading out very well. The props aren't really, I think I don't know what his over under is for rushing yards. Let me actually look at that real quick. But basically, he's just not grading out well. And I just don't like him in this game, especially if I'm going a little bit heavier with Ronald Jones. What are your thoughts on Leonard Fournette? Am I overthinking this? Am I trying to be too fancy by avoiding him?
I don't. Yeah, I do think you are. I don't know if you need to intentionally avoid him. I think his pricing should kind of work him out a decent amount of lineups. I think you kind of just maybe go with the field with a guy like this. We got playoff Lenny. My plan here is essentially to approach it similar to Le'Veon Bell type situation, right? This is their opportunity. These guys haven't had these opportunities. They've come from really shitty fucking teams. And now they have a chance to play in literally the biggest game of their entire career. Leonard Fournette has that championship pedigree. He played for a championship team in college. I believe LSU won a championship that year. But look, he does have upside. I don't know if I want him in the captain spot. But again, I think he's a great play in the flex just because I really think the way that Tampa Bay wins this game is by controlling the ball and pounding the run. So that's really kind of my biggest take when it comes to Fournette. I will have him at flex. I probably won't have him at captain, but I think I'm going to have a shitload of Fournette and Jones stacked.
Exactly. And this is a good point. If you're doing any Ronald Jones at captain, don't be afraid to throw in a couple Fournette in the flex with Jones at captain. No one's playing that fucking lineup. You will walk across the finish line by yourself in most cases, depending on how big your contest is. I actually, like you said, I think our key to this game is the BUCS establishing the run a little bit more. And in that case, I think both Fournette and Jones get the opportunity, and you could rotate them in both in the flex together too, with if you wanted to do Mahomes at captain and you do both Fournette and Jones in the flex, that will be unique as well.
Now, I do want to say one last thing about this. We think that the run game is how they win this game. I am not saying that I expect Bruce Arians to take advice from me. Yeah. Bruce Arians is a fucking madman. He could come out and throw this ball 66 times and rush it 3 times. Keep that in mind, right? That's why I'm going to have exposure to different game scripts specifically, and I'm building for that.
One reason why I just don't love Fournette in this game is because we don't know, we don't know their game plan. We don't know. Bruce Arians could wake up this morning and say, fuck it, let's start Ronald Jones. We just don't know what to expect. We've seen weird shit happen before. Ronald Jones was the guy all year until he randomly was a late scratch on a showdown slate. And then now, Fournette has come up. So does Jones get enough opportunity? I don't know, man. But Jones is so tempting at that price. I'm going to definitely have way too much of him, and I'm not going to be comfortable about it. All right. So Ellie, let's move over to a little prop action here, right? So Thrive Fantasy is going to have some overlay today. I think they're not even halfway full in their big contest, 10K to first. I would highly suggest going over there, playing with some of these props. Ellie, talk a little bit more about Thrive Fantasy.
Yeah, man. With Thrive, you can eliminate the countless hours of research and focus only on the top tier athletes that have biggest impact on the game. You'll choose 10 out of the 20 available player props to build your lineup. Each prop is assigned a fantasy value for both the over and the under based on how likely it is to hit. Hit the most props and rack up the most points to win a share of the prize pool. Thrive has a free $1,000 contest and over $30,000 in guaranteed prizes for the big game. Come prop up on Thrive Fantasy for the big game and use promo code EDGEDFS when you sign up today, and you'll receive an instant match up to $50 on your deposit. Download Thrive Fantasy on the App Store or Play Store by visiting the website www.thrivefantasy.com. Sign up and prop today. Now, you said if they're only half filled on some of these contests, that means literally just shitty math says that you have double the opportunity to cash that you normally would, right?
Right now the
prize pools.
Yes, it's guaranteed. It's guaranteed. So this is a good opportunity. Similar to other sites, when there's overlay, I'm really interested in it because, look, there's 660 potential entries. There's only 256 people entered right now. So I'm personally going to have a couple lineups in this particular contest simply because, look, my chances of winning 10K to first are so much higher on this site than they are on Draftkings. So I'm going to I'm actually going to do a little hedging. If I go heavy, if I fade, if I fade a certain player, if I think that if I want to be under the field on Kelsey on DraftKings, I might go over the field over here. It's just a strategy to kind of hedge your bets here on different sites. So let's actually look at some of these props. What's your favorite prop here? If you had to choose one prop basically the higher the probability on Thrive, you basically put together 10 players out of 20 total props to choose from, and that's your lineup. If you're hitting the over or the under, you get to choose between the two, and the higher probability plays are actually going to be worth less points. So Patrick Mahomes pass yards, rush yards combined at 320.5. The over is worth 95 points. The under is worth 105. So if you're willing to get a little crazy with it, you can get a lot of leverage by going with some of the unders, the old man unders. I think that always gets you a little bit of leverage by going under, because if everybody has a bold take, they like to be bold on the over. So anyways, Ellie, what's kind of your favorite, what's your favorite prop here on Thrive?
So this might be a little too risky, but I don't mind this. Daryl Williams, I think you can actually stack those two props right there.
Yeah.
I honestly want to take the over on the touchdown.
Yes, I was just thinking about this today.
Under on the rushing yards. I think that's a really sneaky play.
I totally agree with you, man. I totally think he can, and that's the crazy thing about these touchdown totals at a 0.5. It's kind of I wouldn't call it a coin flip, but like it's all you need is one play. you just need one play.
I mean, did you see that guy who won like 3,500 on like a $5 bet because he took it was like Jokic. He had Jokic to hit the over on assists at like 16.5, but he had Jokic to also hit the under on assists at 17. So it had to be so he had to get like the exact stat line, right?
Oh my God.
It was he did like boards, points, assists, and points, and then he did the over and the under on him, and he had to guess all of it right, but he ended up winning like 3,500 off of like a $4 bet because he did all the contrarian, the opposite of the player prop that he bet. So anyways, that doesn't help us here, but it's fucking crazy.
But that's just a strategy. That's just like, if you're DFS on Draftkings, it's similar to like it's just similar to being negatively correlated and still having a good lineup on Showdown.
I mean, that's what I do. I use these player props to kind of hedge for MMA, for example. Yeah. If I have a bunch of lineups going for MMA, then I can go and just take the money line or take a prop where it's going to be a second round submission. So it's like you said, right? It does give you a little bit of an edge when you're trying to hedge your betting a little bit here between different sites. And the fucking overlay that's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. The chances of at least min cashing here are pretty good, and you have such a higher chance of winning first. So one of the biggest, I'm glad you brought up Daryl Williams, because one of the biggest prop, like basically leverage moves you can do here is just look at the projected fantasy outcomes. Like look at your favorite site and look at their yardage, what they're being projected, and judge it based on the prop line. And with Daryl Williams, he's coming in around 25 yards is what he's projected on the ground. And that's a huge difference. I mean, that is such a huge difference that you can't avoid being heavy on the under for Daryl Williams. And same with like, some Ryan Suckoff for kicker here. I usually hate kickers. So this is what I'm going to do, I think. On Thrive, I'm going to actually play these kicker props because I'm totally fading the kickers on DFS. And maybe that'll actually even things out for me, because this is a lot easier to nail this. Like 5.5 points. Like he's got some high leverage there. He's projected around 8 or 9 actual real life points. So look, if Tampa Bay scores 4 touchdowns, he gets 4 points. And he gets 1 field goal, there you go. You're hitting the over. Now that's why the over here is 90 points as opposed to the under being 110.
Right.
But I personally, at a certain point, you just gotta. It's like putting Patrick Mahomes in your flex. It's like, okay, yeah, everyone else is gonna have him, but you're gonna have to have certain props or certain players in order to even think about finishing in the top 5 or top 10 or whatever. So some of these kicker props I like. Obviously the over here for him. Another over I'm liking is both quarterbacks for passing yards. Let's see. We have Mahomes passing yards and rushing yards. He's projected around 355 for both combined, and the props coming in at 320.5. I like the over. Obviously 95 points there. So we got to get different somewhere. So are you comfortable with doing? We talked about this before, like an under on Kelsey receptions and maybe an over on yards. Like, how do we get different here as opposed to just going with all the best plays? What's your favorite contrarian pick for Thrive?
I mean, I think you kind of stick with the obvious stuff for until we get a better understanding of the likelihood of this working out. To this comment right here, Buck have R. Jones on punishment. I don't see anything new on that. Is this the same one from a couple weeks ago that we're worrying about? Just let us know.
Probably. He's probably in the doghouse, but like I said, anything can change that. You know what I mean?
Tyrann Mathieu was in the doghouse for a while, and then he ended up crushing, right? So, I definitely think BA gives his people an opportunity today. I think you can get weird on like some of the Kelsey and the Hill stuff, right? Maybe take the over on or the under on yardage and the over on total receptions. So for Tyreek Hill, maybe go over on yardage and then under on receptions. That might be an interesting one. Or does he only
receiving touchdowns? He's a 0.5. The over under is 0.5 receiving touchdowns. So if you think he can have a decent game with receiving yards, just not score a touchdown, I think that's a good option.
Yeah. Or I mean, you can even get a little bit contrarian here with they got Nicole Hardman at over 33.5 yards. Yeah, I can see that being. See that it is a little difficult because some of these props are so low. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I'm going to spend some time after the show, really dig into, like Leonard Fournette. I personally like the under on his touchdowns. There's a total chance that he doesn't score a touchdown in this game. Yeah, he could score obviously, but at 115 points, I think that might be the safest contrarian play. Because you're talking
what's nice about that is if we're going to have some exposure to DFS, then you're not completely fucked if he just.
That's what I'm saying.
So
I'm going to be under on Leonard Fournette on DraftKings, and I might, maybe I'll stay under on this too. Maybe I'll just go all in on saying fuck Fournette. All right. Anyways, guys. So Ellie, check out Thrive. There's going to be some overlay there. Check them out. Use the promo code EdgeDFS. You'll actually, if you deposit $25 at least, they'll actually give you a free entry into that big contest. So check them out, guys. So Ellie, when it comes to other props like on the DraftKings Sports app, can you pull that up? Is there anything that jumps out to you? I usually like betting on like first touchdown or anytime touchdown score. That's kind of, especially when we're doing all this DFS research, a lot of times these numbers will just pop out to you like, wow, why is AB have such high odds or something like that? And that's something we should look at real quick before we move into a build.
So, I mean,
hang on, stop talking. Hang on. Sorry guys, my shit. Would you mute yourself and unplug your shit? A little technical difficulty here. All right, try it. Oh, and he's gone. All right, so I'm going to pull up the DraftKings Sports app here. I want to look at some props. I want to look at, let's see. Let's see here. DraftKings Sportsbook. I want to look at some anytime touchdown scorers here. Let's see what we got going on. Ellie, he's gone. Yeah, he's gone. He'll come back. Give him a second. All right, so let's look at anytime touchdown scorers here. Let me actually share my screen. And hit us up in the chat if there's any of these props that you guys are liking. So obviously right now, the money line, the BUCS are plus 138. Let's look at player props for touchdowns. So first to score, Kelsey at plus 700, Tyreek Hill at plus 700, Mike Evans plus 700. One thing that always interests me, and Ellie and I won a decent amount of money on this last time, is Patrick Mahomes' first touchdown. And I think that was the divisional game? Let's see. My computer went to airplane mode. Computer went to airplane mode. All right. Well, we'll give him a second to come back in. Anyways, a guy like Patrick Mahomes, getting a rushing touchdown on the first drive at plus 1,700 is pretty nice. At all to score anywhere in the game, plus 240. What jumps out to me here for first touchdown, I mean, look at Gronk, plus 1,400. Even Daryl Williams, plus 1,500. Ronald Jones, plus 1,800 for first score. Mecole Hardman. I mean, there's so many good options here. I'm actually going to dive deep into this later on and try to put in a couple of. I probably hedge some of based on my exposure for DFS. I'll come in here and probably hedge, or maybe I'll just double up on some of these. Like Ronald Jones for any times touchdown score is plus 240. Throw a couple bucks on that. That's pretty good payout. So besides that, let's actually hit us up in the chat if you guys want to talk about anything else. We're going to wait for Ellie to come back here. Let me pull up. So right now, the last thing we talked about, our last show, we actually had our fade of the night. Now, I'm kind of still on this for now. It's scary to fade Fournette, and if he comes in a little bit lower owned as we get closer to lock, if his ownership projection's a little bit lower owned than I would expect, like if he comes in under 30%, then maybe I might actually consider playing him more. But personally, I just think that he's going to be a little overhyped and a little over-owned this week, so I'm going to go under the field on Fournette. I'm not going to fade him completely. Ellie was leaning more towards Mike Evans. I think it's a good option because Mike Evans is a pretty boom bust kind of guy. So with Mike Evans, you're not expecting a ton of volume. He has like those, 4 or 5 receptions for 2 touchdowns and 80 yards kind of an output. So I think Mike Evans is actually a decent fade. I'm actually going to embrace both of those guys. Let's see. So when it comes to our captain choice, let's do this.
Now, if you want to crown them, then crown their ass.
So on the last show, we talked about this. I think most of my exposure is going to go to Tyreek Hill simply because of the fact that I think he's going to be slightly under-owned because everyone's going towards Mahomes, but he has the upside to break the slate on any given day. I think Hill, Kelsey, and Brady are going to be my highest owned, and then I'll sprinkle in a lot of these lower owned guys. Ellie is higher on Antonio Brown. I think it's strictly a contrarian play. I mean, he's not going to have 60% Antonio Brown a captain. He's probably going to have 20 or less of him, simply because I think Antonio Brown's going to come in around 3% owned in the captain. So it's one of those things with Antonio Brown. I like him as a captain choice. But me personally, I'll probably be maybe 5 to 10%. I think I'm doing 100, and let me see how many lineups I have. I think I'm doing like 100 lineups. I'm probably just going to try to enter as many lineups that show, or mini 20 max contests that show up as possible. All right, guys. So besides that, we appreciate you joining us, guys. We're hitting right about an hour here. Check us out if you want to have a little bit more in depth of a breakdown where we're going position by position and talking about all the salary. Be sure to check out our YouTube channel. Check out the previous videos. We have a full-on like hour and 40-minute breakdown. So, but it's a timestamp, so you can kind of go through and see each position and look at that. But for now, I think we're going to send you off with. Me personally, I'm going to be fading Mahomes at captain. I'm not going to have any Mahomes at captain. Maybe in single entry, I'll have some, or lower field size tournaments, I'll have some. But if it's over like 10,000 entries, I'm just going to fade him at captain. I'll put him in the flex in most of my lineups, but there'll be some lineups where Patrick Mahomes will not be in my lineups at all because of a leverage thing. Because I think there's a situation where the Chiefs get out to a big lead, and maybe Mahomes won't pay off his salary. Maybe he just won't be needed. I think you should be safe and get most of your lineups with him, to be honest. So anyways, guys, we appreciate everything. Thank you so much. we'll be back with some NBA shows this week, so stick with us there. And there's Ellie. What's up, bro?
I just switched laptops. I don't know what the fuck's going on. My shit, dude.
Hang on. Jesus H. Hang on a second. Fucking technology. Ellie, you there? Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay, I can hear you now. All right. Well, thank you guys. I was just wrapping up. Ellie, anything else to add? We've hit an hour. Anything else to add? I was just basically talking about our Mahomes exposure. Send the audience out with some tips about roster construction maybe, and where you're going to end up with your captain choices for the most part.
Yeah, I'm thinking about just sticking specifically to the key guys that we've discussed throughout for captain, and then I'll have some exposure to some of the lower owned guys like Rojo, and then I think I'm honestly going to probably end up with 35 to 40% of Antonio Brown. I think he's just in a great spot tonight. But all my lineups, I don't know if I'm going to be as ballsy to go 5-1, but today's going to be a lot of 4-2 stacks.
2-4 Chiefs in the captain, 4 Bucks in the flex. I think it's
100%. Yeah, I'm going to be all over that today.
All right, guys, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. Send us a like on your way out. Thanks a lot, and we will see you later in the week for NBA. Good luck today, guys. Let us join our Discord and hit us up and let us know how you guys are going to do. All right, thanks.